Chapter 33. Although it was still very early, the airport was already crowded. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting their pale glow over the bustling crowd of travellers, flight crews, and security personnel. Shera and Andrew moved quickly through the terminal, keeping close to the walls until they found a quieter corner with empty chairs. Andrew sank into the seat with a long exhale, his entire body aching. Now that they were briefly safe, the adrenaline faded, and exhaustion hit him like a wave. Every muscle, every bone screamed with fatigue. Hunger gnawed at his insides, a dull, relentless ache he could no longer ignore. He couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten. Since being captured, his body had been running on fear and instinct alone. He turned to Shera. She hadn't sat beside him but chose a seat a few chairs down, her body tense, arms crossed tightly, her face turned away. She had been silent the entire way here. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice rough. "Yes," she answered flatly, still avoiding his gaze. But she wasn't, not even close. She could feel the hunger clawing at her from the inside. The urge was building, becoming harder to ignore with every passing second. She hadn't fed enough earlier, and after everything that had happened in the tomb, she was weaker than she wanted to admit. The smell of so many people, sweat, skin, blood, was overwhelming. Her throat burned. Her vision blurred slightly as the scent of warm blood passed nearby. A mother with a toddler, the pulse in her neck visible like a beacon. She gripped the metal armrest until her knuckles whitened. Every heartbeat she heard felt like an invitation, every pulse a drumbeat in her ears. She clenched her fists and closed her eyes, trying to suppress the memory. That night, the last time she had let herself lose control, the blood, the screaming, she had sworn to herself she would never give in again. But what if she couldn't help it? She stood abruptly. "I need air," she said, already walking away before Andrew could reply. He hesitated only a second before following her, weaving through a few early morning travellers until they reached the end of a dim corridor, half closed to the public. A maintenance sign leaned against the wall, and a single flickering light buzzed above. She leaned against the wall sideways, one hand braced flat against the surface to steady herself, her head bowed. Her other hand covered the lower half of her face. Her shoulders trembled. Andrew stopped a few feet behind her. "Shera ... "Don't," she rasped. "Don't come closer." Her voice trembled. Her eyes glinted with a dangerous sheen. She sank to the ground, sitting with her back against the wall, arms wrapped around her knees and her head resting gently atop them. "I can hear it," she whispered. "Everyone's blood, every heartbeat, every drop. I can't be here, Andrew. I can't be around them." "Take mine," he said softly. Her head snapped up. "What?" "You need it. You're starving. You said it yourself. You can't just keep going." "No," she said. "You don't understand. I might not stop. I trust you." She stared at him, stunned by the simplicity in his voice. "That's not the point," she whispered. "Trust doesn't change what I am right now." Andrew crouched beside her, closer now. "I'd rather give it freely than watch you tear yourself apart." She trembled. The hunger was a living thing now, dragging at her every thought. "Tell me when to stop," she whispered. He nodded. Shera moved with reluctance, fear brimming in her eyes. She leaned in slowly, lips brushing the side of his neck. Her breath was hot, then the fangs, a sharp sting, and then something stranger, a warmth, a strange dizzying flood, as if the air itself thickened between them. Andrew felt lightheaded but not afraid. And then it was over. Shera pulled away violently, stumbling back, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand, her breath coming hard and fast. "Are you okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "I've had worse hangovers." She gave a breathless, humorless laugh, then turned away, ashamed. "You didn't hurt me," he said. "That's what matters." They returned to the terminal, walking like ghosts. They sat again, just as before. But the tension between them had shifted. Something had passed between them. Moments later, a man approached them, tanned, bearded, dressed in a grey suit, with a white turban wrapped neatly around his head. Shera. Her head snapped up. A man stood before her, a vampire. She hadn't sensed his approach, which meant she was far more depleted than she realised. "Depends," she replied cautiously. "Marius sent me," he said. She stood at once. Andrew followed suit, his eyes narrowed. "Marius mentioned you weren't alone," the man added, his gaze drifting to Andrew. "But he didn't say your companion was human." "Did you bring what we need?" Shera asked, ignoring the comment. "Follow me." "Where?" Andrew asked. "Trust me," the man said simply, already turning to walk. Andrew looked at Shera and gave a slight shrug. "I don't think we have a choice." Shera hesitated. Everything in her told her to be cautious, but they had no other option. She followed. They left the terminal and entered a restricted hallway with security access. The noise of the crowd faded behind them as the man led them to a staff-only elevator. They rode it in silence until the doors opened to a quiet upper floor, where a small private apartment was nestled behind an unmarked metal door. "This is used for resting during long shifts," he explained. "You can stay here until your flight. There's a shower, a bedroom, and some clothes inside. You'll find it more comfortable." The space was modest but clean, an open room with a small kitchenette, a couch, and a door leading to a separate bedroom and bathroom. A travel bag sat on the bed, along with towels and basic toiletries. "I'm Saeed Al-Hamad," their host said, setting 2 passports, plane tickets, and a wad of cash on the table. "Airport security. I used to be a hunter. Met Marius back in those days." "Outsider?" she asked. Said didn't answer, just nodded shortly. "Thank you," Shera said. "Your flight leaves in about 90 minutes. Rest, wash up. I'll be back with food and what else you might need." He turned to Shera, handing her a sealed package. The scent of blood hit her like a wave. Andrew saw her flinch almost imperceptibly. "Aren't you going to ask what happened?" she asked as she accepted the package. "You're friends with Marius. That's enough for me," Syed replied with a gentle smile before turning and leaving them alone again. Shera didn't open the package right away. She stared at it for a few seconds, then silently stood and walked toward the bathroom. Andrew watched as she disappeared behind the door, the package still clutched tightly in her hands. The sound of the door clicking shut was followed by silence. He sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, running a hand through his hair. His neck still tingled faintly from earlier. He didn't know what was he supposed to feel, but he felt noting. Emptiness. A few minutes later, Shera emerged. The package was gone. She didn't say anything as she crossed the room. Their eyes met for a brief, awkward second, neither of them quite sure what to say. Then she looked away. "What is an outsider?" Andrew finally asked. "That's what we call those who live among humans, passing as one of them." "You mean anyone I know could be a vampire?" "In theory. But how is that possible?" Until recently, he didn't even know they existed. Now anyone could be one. "We've learned how to mingle," she smiled. "Some even remove their fangs." "Remove them?" "Yes. We don't need them as much. There's the blood bank now. Those that choose not to fake a medical condition." "Wolf syndrome?" He remembered her saying it the other day. It felt like it was ages ago. She nodded. Silence spread between them once more. There were so many things he wanted to ask but didn't quite know how to start. After a moment, he sat beside her, quiet. "Shera, down there, in the crypt, Kronos said I'm his son." She nodded. "How is that even possible?" "We can have children." "But I'm human. You said it so." Her eyes fixated on him. "You are, for now. But not entirely. Think about what you've done. You fought 2 vampires. You matched me stride for stride. A normal man couldn't do that." He stared at her, confused. "We call people like you the marked," she said softly. born human, but with something else inside, something sleeping. So, what does that mean? I'll become a vampire? Yes, when the time is right. When? No one knows exactly when. It's different for everyone. I changed at 25. You're 30. Andrew got up and paced the room, trying to process. And Carmen? Yes. Her too, Shara said, her voice quieter but certain. Children like her, they start off just like any other. The gene sleeps sometimes forever. But the marked, they carry a different kind of gene. An active one. How is this possible? How come we don't know about your existence? How came you didn't take over the world? Shara gave a faint smile. Although we can have children, our fertility is very low. It takes both bloodlines, human and vampire, to conceive. Human mothers, more often than not, can't carry the child to term and die during childbirth. Out of the children that survive, most never awaken, and those that do, well, not all of them survive the change. She stopped for a few seconds, considering how much should she tell him. And turning someone, that's even worse. Humans who are turned rarely last long. The change warps them, burns through their minds like acid. They can't walk in daylight, they are always hungry. Most go mad within weeks. She looked at him, voice quiet. Turning humans, it's forbidden. Andrew's steps slowed. You said most never awaken. Maybe I won't. Maybe Carmen won't either. She didn't hesitate. You will? Both of you? He met her eyes, something unsettled stirring in his chest at the certainty in hers. There was no doubt there, just quiet knowledge. How can you be sure? I can't explain it, I just know. Ever since I've turned, it's like I can feel the active gene. Andrew sat down again, the weight of the silence that followed her words pressing down on him. She let the silence breathe before continuing. She remembered how heavy the weight of reality sit on her shoulders when she found out who she was. She wanted to make it easier for him. There's this story, more of a legend actually, about the first ones, she began. The first vampires? Not exactly. The legend says there was a time when some people were different, connected to something greater. They lived long lives, could sense lies and feel emotions, like vibrations in the air. Some believed they were chosen or protectors, sent by the gods to look after humans. But one of them, Arkan, used those gifts for control, greedy, for power. Andrew listened, still, barely blinking. Because of him, they were cursed. No matter how strong they were, their survival now depended entirely on blood. Without it, they would weaken and suffer. And for them to live, others had to bleed. That was the price, an eternal life paid by countless other lives. She paused. Some say we're descended from those guardians. Others dismiss it as myth. But stories have a way of surviving for a reason. Whether it's truth or fable, it's up to us to decide what it means. A curse or a gift. She smiled faintly. It's not all darkness, Andrew. Sometimes it truly is extraordinary. Andrew didn't speak for a long time. The legend hovered in the room like the scent of old incense, faint, mysterious, unsettling. Half an hour later, Syed returned, bringing them each a change of clean, neutral clothing and breakfast for Andrew, a simple tray with bread, fruit, and hot tea. Andrew's stomach growled at the sight. Sorry for the delay, Syed said, setting everything down. I had to deal with a security matter, he said with a tired smile. A pilot tried to smuggle live snakes in his bag. Don't ask, he continued with a sigh. You should have time to shower, change, and rest a little before boarding. Thank you for everything, Andrew said earnestly. It was nothing, Syed replied with a warm smile. Good luck. He gave a respectful nod and left them alone once more.